Vanakkam. Welcome back to our course on SAP Materials Management. So, it is important to configure SAP to bring the required business processes in the right way into the system. We discussed how to configure the organization structure, material master, business partner from point of view, and also the purchasing documents, message determination, and the price determination in the last 5 sessions. In this session, we will be talking about how to configure the release procedure for purchasing documents. Before going into the session, let us discuss the answers for the previous session quiz. So how many schema and message types can be assigned to purchasing document? Only one schema and one message type can be assigned to each purchasing document. What are the examples of condition types in the purchasing procedure, in the pricing procedure? Price, discount, freight, surcharge, etc. These are the examples of condition types. And schema groups can be grouped only at supplier levels, true or false. False. Schema groups can be grouped at supplier and purchase organization levels. Release procedures are approval procedures for purchasing documents such as purchase requisitions and purchase orders. The way these procedures are configured is called release strategy. A release strategy involves a process whereby an approver verifies the document with respect to like a material, quantity, value, etc. And then he authorizes the purchase. The process takes place online, saving a lot of time, and also it is more efficient compared to the manual approval process. Here we see various steps involved in MM configuration. In this session, we are going to discuss the release procedure for purchasing documents like a purchase requisition, purchase orders with the classification and without classification. Release procedures, that is approval methods, can be configured for like a purchase requisition, purchase order, RFQ, outline agreements, or service entry sheets. And this is the same for all. So if you master in one method, then you can do everything. So this is the release procedure, different levels, how they are how they are used in different business organizations. There are some areas where the no approval is required. For example, they create purchase requisition, it is released for purchasing process directly. Or there is one level approval is required. Once they create the purchase requisition, there is one approval required, then it will be processed for further purchasing. Or there may be two level approvals. In that case, then two approvals, level one it will be approved, and then level two will be approved, then it will be passed to the purchasing processes. So like this, 8 approval processes can be done in SAP. 8 approval processes, 8 approval levels can be fixed in SAP. So now when you are having these levels, they also depends on various conditions or something. Now let us see that how these levels are fixed based on the values. For example, there is a purchase requisition which is having the value like 500. When the value is less than 500, right, it will check, and if it is less than 500, it will directly process for the purchasing process. If it is more than 500, there will be level 1 approval required. Then only it can be passed on to the purchasing process. Similarly, let us now see the two-level processes, how it works. So there is a purchase requisition for which less than 500, it will be directly processed to purchasing. When it is more than 500, system will check whether it is more than or less than 2500. If it is less than 2500, it will be processed with level 1 approval. It will be sent for purchasing process. If it is more than 2500, it will be processed for level 2 approval. Then only it will be passed on to the purchasing process. This is how the levels are used in the business processes. Now let us see how these things are put into SAP, right? That is what we are going to discuss now. Now, before going into discussing that how these things are said, let us also understand how these are all used in SAP, like the different terminologies. What are the different terminologies are there? Those things let us understand, because understanding this terminology will help us to configure the system in the right way. So here there are two company codes, right? IN01, IN01. Sorry, one company code. There are two plants, IN01 and IN02. There are two things, and here we are having like for example, let us say IN01 is Chennai, IN02 is Mumbai. Now the values at IN01, if it is less than 500, it will be processed by level 1 approval. If it is more than 500, it has to be approved by level 2. That is a condition what they put it there. And then the IN02 Mumbai, whatever it is, whatever the value, it has to be approved by level 1, then it has to be approved by level 2. So these are the conditions, right? So in two plants, there are two kind of conditions, and one plant there is different based on the values. Another plant, irrespective of the value, there is a two-level processes required. That is how the processes are required here. Now let us see the terminologies. So here there is a release code or condition release codes. What is this release code? Release code is a two-character key that represents an individual or a position in the organization who is responsible to give this approval. So in our example, it is L1 and L2. So each person involved in the release procedure signifies as an approver to release the purchase order based on its authority level using this release code. And then release conditions. Release conditions determine which release strategy applies for a particular purchasing document. For example, if the value is less than 500 or more than 500, or it is more than these things or more than any other value, what is the condition or what is the criteria which has to be used for the release procedure? If the purchasing document applies with this or satisfies these conditions, then the purchasing document will be approved before it can be proceeded further. And then there is a term called release prerequisite. For example, the approval levels. Only after L1 is approved, L1 2 can be approved. This is what no prerequisite. So for L2 to approve, L1 should have approved it. This is called the prerequisite. That also we need to fix it. And then there is a release strategy. The release strategy means it defines the entire approval process. Here we see this vertical column, right? For example, the unique set of conditions, sequence, and the levels of releases. What are the levels? No, here we highlighted three vertical columns here. So there are three release strategies: S1, S2, and S3 in our case. And release group is a group of the release strategies. Also, there is another term called release indicator. So it represents, release indicator represents the status of the item or the document, like whether it is blocked or released. For example, if the document is not fully released, it might have been blocked. So any user, they should know it. What is the status of the purchasing document? Now let us see what are the different types of release procedures. So release procedures are two types. There are two types of release procedures. One is that without classification, another is with the classification. A release procedure without classification can be configured only for item level releases in purchasing requisitions. Therefore, the release procedure can only be used for internal documents like purchase requisitions. This limitation arises because the external documents like purchase orders must be sent to the vendors, and therefore they cannot be partly approved. So this without classification can be used for purchase requisitions at the item level. In a release procedure without classification, we can set the release based on the four criteria like a plant, value, material group, and account assignment. And then release procedure with the classification. Release procedure with the classification offers many more criteria to define the release strategy. We can define either of these procedures with or without classification for the purchase requisitions. For purchase requisition, we can apply without classification also. Sorry, with the classification also. But for POs and RFQs, we should use the release procedure with the classification only. So with these things, now in this session, we are going to discuss the release procedure with the classification only. So what are the steps involved in this release procedure? First, the steps involved in release procedure for without classification are given on the left hand side of this page. Like create the release code, release indicator, setup strategies, strategic codes have to be defined, prerequisites, like what we told, that level 1 to approve before level 2 should approve, what is the status, and also overall document type status, and then created and allocate the authorization profile. These are the without classification steps. Now, if we are going to the with the classification step, there are three additional steps are involved, like create the characteristics and link the characteristic to a common structure and link to a common structure. For example, the structure no CEBAN for purchase requisition or CEKKO for purchasing document like a purchase orders. Now create the class and link it to the characteristics, and then create the release groups and link to the class. These are the three additional steps. Remaining steps are as it is for the with the classification. Now, as I told, the release procedure here, we are going to discuss with the classification in this session. So before we start configuring the release strategy, we need to define the combination of parameters to trigger the release. The triggering criteria may be like a combination of document type, right? Like a purchasing document type and the purchasing organization, along with value, depending on which number of release codes assigned to the document which is created when the document is created. So in SAP, we have like a runtime structure, right? Runtime structures. Right now, here we have, for example, CEKKO for purchasing documents, CEBAN for purchase requisitions. These are the runtime structures. To view the field in this runtime structure, we can see various fields which can be used for this release process. So now by using transaction SC12, we can see all the fields which are involved in these different structures. Now let us go to this SC2O. Here I put this CEKKO. Now let us put display button and see this. The table is now it is appearing here. Here we see the combination of plant and order value. Also, we can see the other fields like a purchase organization, purchasing group, order type, and other details here. Now we need to create the release procedure based on the document type and the order value for this particular session, right? So here, what are the things we need to consider? The document type from the structure CEKKO and the field name is BSART. Similarly, for order value, structure name is CEKKO and the table field name is GNETW, right? For these things, please refer to the previous slide. No, those things are indicated there already. And we need to create characteristics for each field. This document type BSART, for that we need to create one characteristics. For order value GNETW, we need to create another characteristics. To create the characteristics, we can use the menu path shown here or use the T code CT04. So here we have to provide the characteristic name. For example, we can provide Z underscore document type or BP underscore document type, like whatever is easy to recognize, or we need to follow the standard methodology, right? So that we can identify these characteristic names properly, because these characteristic names are also used in the product configurations and many other places also. So we need to define some methodology to define this. Here we just took it as like business process BP underscore document type DOC like that we used it. Now then click on the create button so that it will start to create the characteristics. Now we need to fill the details. For example, in the additional data tab, right, there is a table name called SCEKKO and also BSART is the document type. And here the characteristic is created for the document type. We should also mention the structure name and also the document type. Once you enter the structure name and these things, system will say that format data from data dictionary is taken. Let us just take it and proceed. And now in the basic data tab of this characteristic scene, we have to give provide the what is the appropriate description. For example, here we are telling it is a order type based characteristic, like order type. The characteristic name is what? It is order type. So we are putting here order type within the bracket purchasing. And if we want to configure the release strategy for a single document type, we can select the radio button single value, or if you want to use it for multiple values, you have to select the multiple values radio button. Accordingly, we need to select and proceed. And here we need to provide the description of this document. For example, there are different countries, different login are there. Then if they want to see the description, those languages we can use and put it here. And then here we need to put the values. Under the value tab we have to put the values. For example, we use like document type NB, which is the standard purchase order NB here, so that we put it here. So please take care, this is not coming by F4. No, we are not getting it like by selection field or using F4, we are not getting it. So whatever the value you are entering here, the characteristic value, that must be entered very clearly and without any problem, so that it is capturing the documents, the details properly by the system. And to ensure the characteristics, no, to ensure the characteristics are used only in classes which are made for purchase order releases, then under the tab the restrictions we need to put the class type 032, and also we have to that 032 is the release strategy. So because these are the characteristics, right, they are now getting used for the release strategy process, so we are putting this point here, the 32 what is shown here. No, accordingly we are selecting it and proceeding. Similarly, no, we need to create another characteristic. There is no, we told that the value, right? So using the method, let us create another characteristic. Here we are creating BP underscore NETVAL. Now it is a net value, like that we can say that. So here we have to enter the table name CEKKO, and also the structure is what that GNETW. That was the field name of the value. And also here the system will ask for the currency, so we have to enter the currency that is used in the local currency, what is required that we need to enter. And also if you have multiple values, different values, those criteria have to be maintained in this value tab. Because we have maintained the would have maintained the multiple radio buttons in the first page, right? There you have to enter the multiple values here. So, and also there will be intervals in the purchaser values that we have to configure the characteristics to allow the interval is allowed. That also we need to enter here. And for these characteristics, the values to be defined. What are all the values? Those things we are entering here. For example, it is more than or equal to $100, or sorry, less than or equal to $100, or more than $100. Those values we need to enter. And then the restrictions, as usual, we told we have to use this 032 release strategy. So now we have to create the class and assign the characteristics to the class. For this, use the menu path which is shown here, or use the transaction CL02. Make sure that the class type is 032 release strategy here. And also in the detailed tab, provide the characteristics, which are the characteristics which you use to create, right? Those things we have to assign to this class. And then release procedure configuration. So to configure the release procedure for purchase orders, the menu path which is shown here can be used. And the second point is to configure release procedure for purchase requisitions without classification, menu path is also shown here. Since we are working on the release procedure without classification, we'll use the first menu path. So here the elements which have to be configured are listed, like release groups, release ports, release indicator, release strategies, and workflow. First, let us take release group and then press the choose button so that we proceed with that. Like this, for each one, no? For example, when you do this release code, select the release code and choose. For release indicator, select release indicator and choose. Like that, we need to proceed. Now here we are into the release group configuration. Once we go into this, let us enter the new entries. System will bring us to this page. In this new record, we have to provide what is the right name or appropriate name for the release group. In the column REL group, right? There we have to fill in there. And also under the class column, we have to enter what is the class which are going to use it. Because for example, BPREL procedure, that is that class which can be used here. Whatever the class we created now, that will be used here. And also put the description here. So we are linking the release group with the class. With the class already we attach the characteristics. Now we are bringing that class into the release group. That is a link which is there. Now we have to save the entries. This is how the release group is first configured. And then release codes. Now we are selecting the release code, press the choose, and here enter the new entries. Under the new entries, release codes depends on the number of approval levels. For example, in our case, we are going for 2 levels of approvals, so we create codes 10 and 20. 10 is for buyers, 20 is for the manager. So let us create the release codes under the same group. That also please ensure. Because already previous step we created group, no, under the same group we have to create this release code. Please take note, maximum 8 codes, that is 8 approval levels can be defined in SAP, not more than this. And here we are talking about release indicator. Select the indicator, choose it, and the release ID is contains the values like 0 means block status, ID 1 means it is a release status. Like this we are giving these names. And also the field, the changeable, this field contains the parameters that will define how the system reacts if a purchasing document is changed after the status of the release procedure, of the start of the release procedure. For example, if we released some purchasing document, some change is happening, what should the system do? That is what we are putting here. For example, by selecting the 4, right? So it is changeable, new release in case of new start. So it means it is allowing the purchase order to be changed, but new release has to start. That's what it's telling, right? And also it is telling what is the percentage of value it can change. I mean, after which percentage. For example, 10% change. Within 10% change, there is no release or something, but it's more than 10%, we need to have it. That is the allowance which can be given here. If you give only 0% allowance, even a small change also will trigger. Within 10%, it will be telling more than 10% means it will create the release procedure if there is a change. So these things, right, we need to discuss and understand with the business need. Accordingly, these things have to be defined. Because some organization will say that any change that has to be approved. That's what they mean, which means that we have to give 0% tolerance here. And then for the release strategies, select the release strategies and then press the choose button. Now then press the new entries button. When are coming to these new entry buttons, right? And we are having this BP S1 on the page itself. We are having BP S1 and BP S2. There are two kind of combination of group and strategy there. Double clicks on this group, then now it is bringing us to this the page what is shown here. In this shown, first let us see the set the system for the one level release procedure. So we enter the only one release code 10 here, and then we have to check the prerequisite because it is only one level, right? So here there is no prerequisite which is showing here that whatever the previously created, that one level it has to approve. So here we are doing it. Then press continue from here. Then we have to check the release status. So press the release status. Now system is showing that if when it is created, it is blocked. When the release code 10, when it is done, it is released. Like that is showing, right? Then we have to proceed to the continue for the next step. Now here we are going to talk about the release procedure for two level approvals. So we are maintaining the two release codes here, 10 and 20. Now click on the release prerequisite button. Here we can see when the release code 10, right hand side now with the column of 10 on the row of 20, there is a tick mark. This means for 20 to happen, there should be approval from 10. That is the meaning. That is a tick mark. Okay, that is a tick mark. So which means this is a prerequisite. For 20 to happen, 10 must be there. Prerequisite is defined. And then we continue it. Now you are checking the release status. When you are seeing the release status, when the initially it is created is block status. When the 10 is approved, that is also block status. But when the 10 and 20 both are released, it is becoming the release process. Right? Now let us proceed with the continue the process. The step in this step we are selecting the classification values for the characteristics what we had, because we assign the class. Now within the class there are some characteristics. That characteristics, those characteristics, what is the value we need to have? So we need to put this classification. Now here we are having that one characteristic here, that is the order type. So this order type, let us go and select what is the value there. So for example, here we are having NB. Let us select the NB. If there is a value, means we'll have different values. Those values we need to bring it here and put it there. So when you are entering these details, the characteristic value purchase order type NB, that will be trigger for the release strategy. For example, it is a purchase document type NB, it will release a release strategy. See, I did not put the value here. Now for your practice, you can try this value and bring it here. Okay, right. And then here as shown here, we can also simulate the release procedure, right? Whatever we did the steps so far, whether they are working fine or not, that those things we have to simulate here. So for this, we have to place the cursor on the release simulation, and then let us check it. So here we are getting this, the final release now 1020, and there is a what is it? The simulate release. The point is here. Let us click on the simulate release. See now in the first step, right? It is telling 10 release is possible because the document is created. 10 release is possible, but 20 there is a prerequisite is missing because 10 is not approved. So the overall document is the blocked condition. Now press the set, and then now we see here 10 released this one and 20 release possible because 10 is released no. Now 20 release possible, but since 20 is not still released, full document is still the blocked only. Now we have to again press this set release. The 10 is also released, 20 is also released, and overall document is also now released. That's how the release procedure. We also simulated. Now the release procedure, whatever we configure, they are working fine. And finally, we need to define the workflow, right? We need to define the workflow where it has to go. So now we have to click on this workflow and then go to the new entries process. And the new entry process is that we have to specify what is the release group, what is the appropriate codes and user ID in this column. And in the user ID column, right, there are different user ID object types are there. It may be a work center, it may be job, it may be organizational like this. Normally we use the user, that is US, or the position. No, yes, that is the position. Anything can be used that is to be aligned onto it. So with this, we are completing the release strategy configuration. So the release strategy configuration is not so complicated. Initially, when you do it, it may be looking like difficult, but once you do it step by step procedure, it will be easy only. Not only this, any configuration MM or production planning, if you understand the concepts and define them like a step by step procedures, where the link is for what, if you put them like a flow chart and then arrive at, then configure them is easy only. Now here we talked about the business concept of release procedure, various steps involved in the release procedure configuration. So let us see the quiz for this session. How many release codes are possible, or how many release levels are possible? Can the release procedure get activated if there is a change in some parameters in the purchasing documents? Can the release procedure activated at the level for the purchase orders, the item level for the purchase orders? So these are the quiz questions. Because this is the last session, I provided the answers also in this session itself. Let us see the answers now. So how many release codes are possible? 8 release codes possible. That is 8 levels, approval levels can be given in SAP. Can the release procedure get activated if there is a change? Yes, that can be done. We saw that no. When indicating the release indicator, when you are configuring, there are various options are there. When there is a change with how much, like how much allowances, those things can be done. Those things we discussed here. Can the release procedure be activated at item level for purchase orders? No, it is not possible. Item level release is possible only for purchase requisitions. So with the discussion on release procedure configuration, temporarily we come to an end of this MM course. I will come back with some of the other missing topics like batch management, Kanban handling, etc. after a break. You may post additional documents required, additional topics required on the comments page. We will go through the configuration, settings explained, and explore the description using help button in SAP. Please give your feedback and also your requirements for additional topics so that I can start to prepare them and keep it ready. I will come back soon. Okay. Thank you. Wishing you all the best for your success in your career. Thank you.